Although the hero is what most people are currently focusing on, there were still a ton of other significant changes to Ultimate in the 4.0 patch. 9 characters saw drastic changes and 14 got minor tweaks, and 4 overall gameplay changes were given to the portion of the cast as well. So to save you guys some time with deciphering what the patch notes are yourself, we're going to break it down in this video, as well as give you guys a tier list of the best characters. First up, we have Mewtwo, who got some pretty significant buffs, the most important one being the change to his tail hurt box, which is now much smaller. This makes him a lot harder to hit in general, and makes a lot of his aerials safer to use, which will also make his dash dance safer as well. On top of that, 4 more moves got buffed. Mewtwo's up smash hitbox now stays out for longer and has more knockback. He is able to act 2 frames sooner out of his down smash. His already pretty strong back throw is now even stronger of a kill throw, and his side B comes out a bit quicker as well, which also makes it able to reflect projectiles quicker. Previous Smash 4 Mewtwo mains like Wadi have already expressed interest in potentially playing the character again after the new buffs. This rework for Mewtwo is definitely enough to get him out of the low tier and somewhere up in the middle tier, but for now we're going to put him in C tier around characters like Cloud and Bayonetta. We'll see how the tournament results affect Mewtwo to determine its final placement for the new patch. Ridley also received a ton of buffs this patch that will hopefully see the enormous dragon getting some more screen time at events. His up smash now has more knockback and has a hitbox that stays out for longer. This allows him to hit characters that he previously would have missed with the attack. His back air now does a bit more damage to enemies. The strong portion of the hitbox on his up air is now larger and easier to hit. Ridley's dash attack now has a larger hitbox as well. He's also less vulnerable in general, and his moves also launch opponents further when they're dragged to the edge. And lastly, his up B now starts up and moves a bit faster, making his recovery a bit harder to punish. Ridley's changes are certainly welcome, but doesn't do too much to save the character from his apparent weaknesses. Ridley's still just too big of a hurt box that doesn't move too quickly. That doesn't really instill fear in the same way Bowser does. These changes are a great start, but it likely won't get him out of D tier. Pokemon Trainer got both buffs and nerfs, so we'll have to wait and see if 4.0 was a net gain for the character. But after hearing what changed, let us know in the comments what you think. Ivysaur, the strongest of the 3, took the nerfs, having his ridiculously sized down air shrunk significantly in size, and the weak hitbox of the move now spikes enemies a shorter distance than before. Razor Leaf also comes out slower as well, with Ivy having to wait longer to act it out. And the last nerf came to Up Special, whose strong hitbox does less knockback when used in the air, most likely shifting players to using up air more often to kill off the top. The character as a whole got a buff, as the invincibility time for grabbing edges is no longer shortened when performing a Pokemon change in the air. Now over to the wealth of good news for Charizard. The fire portion of his F-tilt hitbox now has more knockback. His F-smash also does more damage and knocks players further away. His Nair hitbox stays out for longer and has less ending lag. His forward throw now sends players further away, but still most likely won't see much use with how strong his other throws are. And lastly, Charizard can grab ledge out of Flare Blitz a lot quicker. Pokemon Trainer was already on the edge of S tier and A tier for many, though the changes to Ivysaur likely solidify this character in the A tier. Pokemon Trainer doesn't seem overall much worse, but removes what many would consider some janky kills from Ivysaur that were nice for people that mained the trio, but aren't relied on for the entirety of games. That does it for Pokemon Trainer. Now over to Piranha Plant, who desperately needed some buffs, being the weakest DLC character in the game. But these changes probably won't be enough to save the plant, who we think will remain in the bottom F tier. Their dash attack now sends enemies at a slightly different angle. Up tilt now has a smaller hurt box, side B has an upper limit for how much damage it can do when reflected, and the move is faster as a whole, and the hitbox stays out for longer as well. Oh, and Plant's down B has a reduced hitbox, does more shield damage, and also quickly charges up to full power. Isabel has also been pretty scarce in tournament play, although she still has her supporters out there. So maybe these slight buffs she's receiving may be enough to push her further into the limelight, or at least have players give her another shot. Her forward roll and back roll go further, making it a bit of a safer tool. Her squeaky hammer jab is more likely to combo into itself and get multiple hits. Up smash launches enemies slightly further away. Her fishing rod still is a pretty weak move, but if you up throw from it, it launches players further up. These players are detected as being grabbed more quickly by the move, and probably the most powerful change comes to her Lloyd's, which now attacks more quickly. Isabel is generally seen as a bottom-tier character, though she has had some success here and there with a variety of competitors. I wouldn't be surprised if this new mindset approach to the character, along with the small tweaks, will be enough to get her up into the D tier. The story is unfortunately probably the same for our next character, Lucas, who is also receiving a round of good but not character-defining buffs. The hitbox for his dash attack now stays out for longer, his F-tilt has a larger hitbox, and the strong hit side of it does more knockback. The very laggy but power-up smash now has more frames during startup, which makes the hard commitment move slightly safer. And he's able to act quicker after his up air and when landing after using PK fire. These nice changes are certainly welcome, but there's no way to raise him higher than the C tier he's in now. Honestly, as more exciting characters come out, this forgotten child may begin to drop over time. The last two characters who saw big changes in this patch were Pit and Dark Pit, who saw identical changes to a few parts of their kits. Their Jab 1 now comes out slightly faster. The hurtbox on up tilt has been reduced, the first hit of down smash has more knockback, their disjointed back air has less landing lag, making one of their best moves even better. And now down air meteors enemies even further down, making it a more reliable gimp move. This is a start to something nice going for this angelic duo, but it won't make much of a splash in competitive play. The players that previously played Pit will continue to main him, and these changes definitely won't be making anyone new switch to the character anytime soon. Sorry you two, but you're going to remain in the low tier. And with that, we wrap up the characters who saw big changes in this patch. This brings us over to the other 14 who got tweaked. We don't think any of these smaller changes will shift any positions in the tier list yet, but they're definitely worth mentioning. Most of these are pretty inconsequential when it comes to how these characters play or what it's like to play against them. So we're only going to highlight the 5 that are most important for you to be aware of. Peach and Daisy's counter got slightly buffed. Now when they counter a move that hits them from behind, Toad counterattack has a better shot at hitting back. Olimar's never-ending fight with the balanced team continues on in 4.0 with a purple Pikmin F smash now going further and having a hitbox that stays out for longer. Ken and Ryu got more of a quality of life change that now makes sure that you are facing an opponent when attacking after parrying a move. Rosalina thankfully won't be back to her Smash 4 self anytime soon, especially now that she can more easily be grabbed from the front when Luma is following her, which was sort of a nerf. Now Luma will be in front of Rosa when she's doing a reverse jab, F smash, or U smash, which is more of a tweak. And lastly, we have Corrin, arguably the worst Fire Emblem character in the game, having their F smash knock back people further now. Corrin can now act sooner and therefore more safely jump out of a pinned side B. And most importantly, Corrin's up B goes further vertically and horizontally, making them more in line with the great recoveries everyone else has in the game. And before we end this video, let's quickly touch on some of the general gameplay changes that you'll be noticing in the new patch. Characters that have down airs that make them quickly descend, like Sheik, Game & Watch, and Zero Suit, will now have their moves function properly after being launched instead of not having the quick drop effect like they used to. How long a character is able to act after waking up from sleep is now the same across the board for all characters after 6 were changed. This is most likely a side effect of the hero's new snooze spell. Link, Peach, Daisy, and Charizard's up specials and Samus and Dark Samus's up specials, all of which are multi-hit moves, now launch players a shorter distance when they aren't hit by all parts of the move. Alright, so do you think any of these changes of the characters in this patch will have a big effect on how often we see them in a tournament, or do you expect the hero to be so broken that we only are going to be seeing them from now on? Let us know down in the comments below what you guys think. Stay tuned right here on ProGuides for future patch notes and other competitive Ultimate content. Make sure you drop a subscribe on the channel if you want to get those notifications. And if you guys are interested in getting better at Smash Bros, then please check out ProGuides.com using the description link below. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's it for today. Good luck in your next few games, and we'll see you on the Ultimate stage.